is me, Vishwas, and I welcome Shreyasee ma'am for this podcast. This is a kind of a podcast where you have never expected this to happen from being in a non-tech background and still working with the tech firms. It's not about working in the big four or else the Witch, Fang. Leave that. Are you ready to be a good engineer? That's what it's all about. See, everybody can earn money, everybody can lose money some point of time. Like, it's not about where do you work or what do you work as, but like, do you fit in that culture? That's what I really care about, because I don't know whether I'll be a proper engineer for the tomorrow's world. God knows that. But like, can I fit into the culture? Yes, I can fit in for that. So it's all about that, exploring yourself. So I think probably ma'am has really explored a way out to just become that right person inside the culture of tech, because she doesn't do tech every single day, but she has an impactful move at every given point. Like something like, it's not about Scrum Master doing Scrum every day. It's like you just adhering to the fact that there is complexity out there and how to solve it. So that's it all about. So thank you so much, ma'am, for giving me this podcast. It means a lot.
Thank you, Vishwas. I would rather extend my thanks to you for giving this opportunity to share my experiences with you and everybody else. So yes, you can, your introduction of mine was properly defined. Yes, I can say that on a document, I'm a non-technical person, but yes, working in the technical industry since 11 plus years. So yes, I have been a Scrum Master, I have been a project manager, I have been into a leadership position, I have been managing teams, and I had been thoroughly managing different IT frameworks. So yes, that defines what I'm currently into. Now,
Yeah.
if you ask about my journey, then coming into the IT industry was never my mindset. I never wanted to come into the IT industry. It all happened by an accident, and that accident was called campus placement. So there I was about 10 years back doing my MBA, and my plan was going into marketing. Marketing was something I was very crazy about. So I was into advertising, marketing, and I always wanted to make a career into that field. But then campus placements happened, and I got selected in an IT company, and I gave it a shot. And that's where my journey into IT industry began. So the initial years were kind of, they had their own hiccups. I was not very comfortable because I did not have an IT background. I was neither a BTech nor an MTech, but I always tried learning new things every day. I was trying to explore what different programming languages are, what the peer people sitting around me, the different engineers sitting around me are doing. I tried to observe their work, and that's how my learning curve started every day. So, if you ask about the initial years of my corporate journey, that began as a salesperson. Yes, you heard it right. I was into B2B sales. That saying that it implies that I was mostly demonstrating and showcasing the software that my organization was into to different companies, to the board of directors, to their senior management, to their CTOs, their IT heads, and so on. I used to travel to different geographies. I used to, go out of my home, go out of my PG in the morning, and return back by night after giving demonstration of the software to different folks out there for the confirmation if they want to actually purchase it for the organization or not. So there were ERPs, there were different associated softwares, that there were HRMS softwares, there were CRMs, and different other things that I was regularly discussing with people. So somehow in the initial years of mine, the sales pitch didn't work. I was not a salesperson, but what happened was I got to know the customer forte. I got to know the customer insight, what the customer is looking into in an IT industry. That was not marketing, but I got to know that in the IT industry, what does a customer want? What does a CTO want? What would an IT head want when they would like to purchase a software from a vendor company? So that was my initial front facing interaction with customers in the IT industry. And that actually helped me to evaluate my own thoughts, my own perspective regarding the industry where I am. Because at one point of time, I thought of giving up. I thought of quitting the IT industry and starting afresh into marketing profiles or something that would suit me. But then I realized that yes, I had started capturing the pulse of this industry. And even though I was a non technical person, even though I was not an engineer, I was not someone who would be coding, but still I am into a domain where I can understand the customer's pulse and I can pitch the right solution to them. I can pitch the right software to them, and I can engage the customer and my own internal team into a meaningful conversation where it can be a mutually collaborative relationship of both of them. There, the marketing student inside me has also learned CRM, that is customer relationship management in MBA. So that's where I found my forte in the IT industry. And from there, there has been no looking back. And continuously throughout the ladder, throughout the different profiles I had been managing so far, customer interaction has always been running inside me. It is in my blood. And definitely that's where I find my forte. That's where I find that, yes, I need to get this deliverable done. At the end of the day, customer is the king. And managing processes, getting deliverables done, that is something which really makes me stay back in this industry and give my best shot to it every time.
Yeah, many people who have come on my podcast have also told that, it's not about tech anymore. It's like you need not have to be well versed in tech. You need to be a right engineer at that point. Like you need not have to have an advanced tooling wala, certification and this, that, baat karte hai na, like, it's all about like fitting in that culture. It's all about like, how do you really are able to grab that chance and get the opportunity out of it. And yeah, that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, when you think of all these, that's what really comes up. So right now we are in a world where AI is actually popping up into a new infrastructure, like something like, okay, AI added a new complexity for the operations which was being done over a course of time. And also we have a set of tools which actually does a lot of CI, CD and things like that. But higher level, there is an even more complexity which is added. That's people. People is, always I say that, human is the worst link in the entire system. Like you can break any human, like you just have to know the vulnerability. So it's all about that. So how's your journey as a program manager all been like? It's not about like, okay, just going in there, doing some sprint planning, this, that, that's what they think about scrum masters. But like, or else the program managers, or else anybody who is attached with the program management thing, yes, they always do that. But like, how is it all about when you think of the software industry as a problem statement evolving? Because you saw it from a very long time. So how is it all about when we are thinking about the problem statement today? Because you saw different rules, you saw different profiles of people. Like it's not about like how many certificates that they have, it's all about like how are they approaching the problem statement. So how is it differing from the day one of your career to the today, like the problem statement that you're seeing and the way we are approaching it?
Right. So I'll tell you a very interesting thing, a very interesting anecdote from the initial years of my career when actually this whole thing about program management, team management, and service delivery pipeline started. So one of one of the companies that I was associated with in the initial years, after after I left the sales profile and got into totally customer management and team management, so there was a team I was working closely with, and that team was a very nascent one. And they were working as support engineers. They were supporting uh, the solution that was a very wonderful solution. They were supporting Indian clients, international clients. They were very hardworking men and women working on the technical aspects of the software, supporting that after the sales phase, supporting any kind of bugs, supporting any kind of issues which is bringing the customer environment down. But at the same point of time, there was a very crucial thing missing: communication, the right kind of communication which needs to go from their desk, from their emails to the customer, even the internal customer or the external customer. Now, when I say the word customer, customer are two types. One, we say the external customers, which are the customers we are meeting out of the organization. And the second is the internal customer. When we say internal customer can be my director, internal customer can be my sales team, internal customer can be anybody who is seeking my response. So that is the internal customer. So I would be answerable to both my internal customer as well as external customer. So that was a very nascent stage when I identified that there was communication gap. People were not responding timely. People were following the process, but the process was not getting delivered. The pipeline was not getting delivered in time. So starting with the communication, which essentially meant timely communication, time-bound communication, and it also necessarily meant following SLAs. Now, when we speak of ITIL, in ITIL, there is a very common term which is called SLA, which means service level agreements. So whenever we enter into a contract with a customer, an external customer, there are SLAs defined for any kind of issues that they are facing. If there's an issue which is bringing the environment down, there's a total shutdown of the software, that is a priority one, severity one case. where immediate assistance needs to be provided. And if there's, you can say a not so priority case where probably a customer wants a report and the timeline to deliver it is in 15 days. So obviously that doesn't need immediate work. That can be done in a phased out manner in the required time that we have. So these things are mentioned and documented in SLA with the customers. So in any kind of service delivery process, whether you are following Agile, whether you are following ITIL, it is very important and very crucial to follow these SLAs. So the team that I was mentioning about, that was a very nascent team. So I started my journey with them by ensuring that communication is sent out in the right manner to the right folks, and also that it is SLA bound. A person is working, but if that person is not informing to his or her management, to the ultimate stakeholders, that yes, this particular feature has been released, this particular feature has been developed, or rather this particular feature has been implemented and it's working fine, then that actually doesn't materializes into a confirmation of that person's efforts. The efforts get wasted if people don't know about it. So it was all about process reinforcement. It was all about making people aware of the process, getting the team work in a united manner to deliver something, and raising it to the right time to the management, like where there are hiccups so that management can assist them, and where they need some assistance, and where there are any loopholes in the process. So it was all about identifying them, streamlining them, reinforcing them, and at the end of the day, ensuring that the entire pipeline is running smoothly and deliverables are in shape. Now, when I speak of ITIL, about 6 to 7 years of my corporate journey, I had spent working under ITIL framework. ITIL, if you say, if I define it in simple language, when a product gets developed, there is a development team. Then the product gets tested. There's the QA or QC team. Then it gets implemented. There is the team which is doing the implementation. And then there's a team which is supporting the application post-implementation. So the product passes through all these phases. And it is very essential that the product should meet the SLAs, the defined time of the pipeline. If somebody has committed a particular time for a product release, it shouldn't be a case where the customer or the external stakeholder is waiting and we are still building the product or we are still testing the product. So all these things need to be duly taken care of, which is the task of program manager or program management team. We should ensure timely communication. If there are any gaps, we need to follow up with the concerned stakeholders, chase the concerned stakeholders. And if there isn't any delay suspected, then that needs to be informed in time to the concerned people. So apart from that, this was the crux of the service delivery part that I was handling into and ensuring that there's no gaps there. Apart from that, program management essentially involves around managing resources, managing people, managing different factions of the department, of the culture that you are working into. There can be budgeting, there can be financing needs, there can be simple thing is about planning of leaves of people who are working in your team. A person may be on a planned leave, a person may be on an unplanned leave. There can be exigencies, but ultimately the work shouldn't suffer, the deliverables shouldn't suffer. So it's always important to have a backup plan if somebody is not available. So how do you manage deliverables in that time? See, it is very important to create a code. It's very important to test something. But at the end of the day, if the deliverable is not happening, you need to proactively identify the gaps, what could be the possible gaps, and you need to keep resolutions in place handy with yourself so that the deliverables, the pipeline, the CI/CD pipeline, the DevOps that we all talk about these days, this is not impacted. Technical work definitely is taking place, but at the end of the day, process through which the technical work is getting shipped, that is important. If you do not follow the process, then your work is a wastage. Your work doesn't get recognition in the market, in front of your customers, whether it be external or whether it be internal. So this is all about managing the delivery process, the pipelines, and ultimately creating a shippable product and supporting that. So that was all about identifying the program management need in a particular team, building that team, and bringing the team to a maturity level where that team became a self-functional team and they were able to deliver themselves with a proper backup plan in hand, with proper communication channels, and in a timely fashion.
That's true. But like that's always there because like when you think of the evolution, right, it's not like Itil, Scrum, Agile, this, that, CMI, Kanban, whatnot. Everything is there in an organization culture. Like everybody knows that this is what the complexity is like. But now when you look at the problem statements, do you feel that we are very close to what we are building for the tomorrow's world? Because now we have microservices, now we had serverless, And the way in which software is improving is also pretty great. Like something like you need not have to be a part of it, but yet you can get the hold of it within days. Like when you just, it's like I always say this, if you don't get the solution, stare on your monitor. Like it will just pop up sometime. Like that's what it's all about today. So how is it all about when we are architecting something and communicating the right way? Because you talked about how has the problem statement evolved, because you told that okay, communication is the best thing, but program manager is all about how are we communicating the right things at the right given point of time. But like, how is it all about when we are architecting something? Because you should not be knowing anything tech, but yet you will be working with our technology people who will be communicating this and that to them. There was a meme from Preetham sir, like one of my guests on the podcast, and in a WhatsApp status, and it was something like the baby fears for a rabbit, which is something like the code which is having a typo in the comment, not the comment. But there is always an inevitable production bug which will always be there. So what is it all about when we are talking about architecting a solution today? Because we are trying to build an AI which is as close as a human being, but computers were never defined for that. Like computers were defined for ones and zeros, but now we have gone beyond that. So what is it all about when we are architecting solution today?
Yeah, the most crucial part is upscaling yourself continuously, because if you're stagnant, you won't survive. So whether it be in the tech world, whether it be in the non-tech world, whether it be in any kind of industry, the most crucial thing is upscaling and knowing what current market wants, what the current situation requires from you, and what is the pulse of the market, what is the pulse of the people. Since last 2 years, we have been mostly working from home. We have been in a lockdown, and ironically and very surprisingly, the IT industry managed it perfectly. I mean, all of a sudden, offices were shut. People were expected to be working and delivering things, planned things from home. And the pipeline, the delivery process shouldn't get suffered in the entire duration. In the last 2 years, people have been facing network issues from their home. People have been facing device issues from their home. People were not able to commute many times. I mean, at the initial level, doing virtual meetings, getting to know your team members just on a phone or just on a tab or just on a laptop was something we never imagined about. But nowadays, we are seamlessly having client meetings over the call. We are driving closures of contracts. We are driving sales of different softwares over the virtual meetings only. So we automatically adapted to this new situation of COVID. We automatically started working from home. We automatically started, you know, presenting ourselves in front of a computer and giving the best that we can. We screen shared, we shared Excel sheets, we shared process plans, we shared project plans, and all that sitting from the comfort of our homes, and at the same time working nonchalantly. I would say that even, I mean, you can say that this is a dual-faced situation where 2 years back we used to commute to offices. We used to meet people, we used to work closely in a cubicle, in a meeting room. But now working from home, at the same time, while it has given the comfort or discomfort of working from home at the same time, but your commutation time gets consumed in the way you plan your deliverables. Like supposedly, I used to plan my commutation for 1 hour. I would travel from say Noida to Gurgaon, for example, and it would have taken me 1.5 to 2 hours, depending upon the traffic. But now at the same time, I have this 2 hours bandwidth to complete a deliverable from home that may be crucial, and it needs to be delivered that day itself. So it's a blessing in disguise, and you can say it cannot be a blessing in disguise as well, depending upon how you perceive it. So adaptability is the crux of the situation. First was upscaling, that I need to upscale every time. Everybody of us needs to upscale, related to the technology, related to what is in the market right now, the pulse of the people. Second is about adaptation. You need to adapt to the circumstances, you need to adapt to the situations, you need to adapt to the technology. If I'm still working with an obsolete technology, I would not find people who would be borrowing things from me right now. I would have to know what is required right now. And for example, I said that I have not done BTech, I have not done MTech, but I need to know what the person I'm managing, the person I'm closely working with, what he or she is working into, what he or she is developing. I just cannot sit back and stare at that person's desktop or stare at that person's project. That no, I don't need to know the code. Maybe I don't need to know the code, but I need to know what that person is working into. That would be my insight. That would be my own level of upskilling myself and a learning curve, I would say. Now, after adaptation, the third thing I would say is very important is uh, trainings and certifications. That is a very important part of your upskilling path and enhancing your knowledge curve. At one point of time of my career, when I was still working in the ITIL framework, I got to realize that I had become very stagnant. I was every day doing the same thing. I was preparing the same Excel sheets. I was having the same kind of meetings. I was driving the same kind of communications over emails. I was doing the same follow up. At that point of time, there was a manager in my team who suggested me that why don't you do a Scrum Master certification? And it was that manager who pointed out to me that I was actually doing the role of a Scrum Master. At that point of time, I didn't even know what a Scrum Master meant. So then I researched, I found out everything about Scrum, everything about Agile. And since I was closely related to ITIL at that time, it also gave me a dimension to compare and evaluate Scrum. And I also went for a Scrum Master certification, the foundation level at that point of time. Before that, I had also done the ITIL Foundation certification, and it gave me an expanded knowledge of what I was already working into. And when I did Scrum, that gave me an added exposure to the industry because I found that there was so much requirement of Scrum Masters in different organizations. And why Scrum Masters are required? Scrum Masters mostly meant facilitators. They are normally termed as facilitators if we go by the textbook definition, who actually do not have an authority. They would not dictate, but they would facilitate an entire pipeline on how it needs to be delivered. They would be acting as the conflict resolution person in a team. They would be acting as the person whom people can reach out to. They would be closely working with the stakeholders, the product owners, the customers, and guiding and mentoring their team to deliver things on time. So somewhere this was similar to what I was already doing. So I did the Scrum Master certification also, and it added an advantage to the overall biodata that I was having at that particular time. And definitely, I would definitely like to go for more certifications, and I would recommend that to different people as well. That be it in the Scrum framework, be it in ITIL, be it any framework, in any industry, in any domain a person is working, but definitely undergoing trainings from time to time. There are different Microsoft trainings, like there are different cloud trainings. I would say AWS, Azure, GCP. These things keep coming up. So conducting, getting the training, getting these trainings done, and getting certifications done in time will definitely boost your career perspective. And apart from that, will also lend you a, an ample degree of knowledge on how you need to survive, how you need to define different things, and understand the process overall in which you are already staying. So these things are very important for surviving and upskilling and going up the ladder, I would say.
Yeah, that's true, because like when we were thinking of something which is to be evolved, I think probably all these factors come in, like how do you upskill a team? How do you make sure that you are really connected to the endpoints of like what is happening here and what is happening there? Like it's all about that. Like it's also like, of course, we can adapt to the tech very easily. We can adapt to the new way in which the hardware is being built. Like if you think of something like Cloud Rack, I think probably Cloud Rack has been disposed many times. Silicon, okay, Silicon was just a rock. It just became a circuit. We just added a little bit of wiring. I think probably that's because of VLSI, which just improvised. But like, of course, there is even engineers who are working on that aspect as well. But now, when we think of all these things, of course, you addressed all the things about certification, adaptation, and things like that. But now, when you think of organization culture, how has the organization culture evolved? Because not every person has the same old approach back then when they had like something like ML did not exist, but now every company wants something as an ML in their system. I'm like, what? Like you can't ask ML inside everything. You need not have to run an ML instance in order to be survival in the market. Like there are very great instances which are coming up. So what is it all about when we are talking about adaptation from the culture side? Because I think probably many organizations have that own dilemma. Like every organization has its own dilemma. Like, okay, how can we do this, that, and everything? Everything is a dilemma there. So how is it all about when we are talking about culture adaptation in a large firm? Because ITIL as a certification has no value until and unless you adopt it. Like ITIL might not be absolute for tomorrow's world because we have many things coming up today, like Scrum, Agile, this, that, and probably even I think it evolved over a course of time, because it's like total quality management, TQM, and things like that. It's like 100 years of history that we are talking about. So, how is it all about when we are talking about organization culture, adaptation, and also evolution of it? Because technology evolves, not every company might not be agile to that, but like what's your view on all these things that we are thinking about when we talk about the industry perspective?
Right. So see, different companies are on different phases of learning curve. Every company has its own level of maturity. If we see a graph, the graph that we used to study in economics in our school days. So, and if we compare that to a product life cycle graph, there's a product life cycle graph commonly used in marketing, where a product has its initiation phase, then the product goes to the highest level of that graph, and then the product has its downfall. So every company, every organization has its own level of maturity in the way it gets adapted to different processes, to different technologies, and as you said, rightly said, machine learning. So there are large organizations these days, there are MNCs, they are gradually trying to adapt machine learning into their different product portfolios. And what is happening is that there are smaller organizations. They may not be having that much team strength. They may not be having that much capacity or that much expansion plan in the current year. But definitely people might be interested in learning new things. So these organizations, smaller organizations, would take some time to evolve and reach that level. But yes, curiosity, having curiosity is always should always be there, and having a craving for learning machine language, algorithms, and I would say artificial intelligence. It is very much in boom these days. So while big organizations can have the bandwidth, can have the leverage of investing in these technologies, investing in these new kind of things in the market right away, small organizations who are a bit on a lesser degree of maturity may take some time, but definitely, as I said, that adaptation eventually is the crux of the story. Ultimately, people wouldn't stay back on obsolete technologies, and they would have to come up the ladder and evolve themselves. So even if I would say for an organization cultural point of view, in that case, no company is stale, no company is bad in itself. But yes, there are different levels where that organization is evolving. A simple organization, I can say, if somebody is creating a startup, somebody created a startup of 5 people in a room, and they're delivering something. If they're following the process correctly, if they're understanding the pulse, then their startup might survive in the market, and they may be flourishing their business. But at the same time, if somebody is not able to understand the business strategy, then on a different startup with say 10 members and a whole building capacity taken into consideration may not survive. So it's all about knowing what is currently striving, following the process, and getting things done in the right and timely way. So eventually, if you say about the organization culture, then yes, culture differs from place to place. And when it comes to people who make that culture actually, so we have seen occasions where people quit the company when they say that they are not, I mean, they're not finding the company suitable, or they're not finding the manager suitable. So you'll see number of LinkedIn posts every day where people are saying that people leave when they do not find a good company or they do not find good managers. But eventually, I would say that it's a two-faceted coin. Somebody might find an organization, somebody might find an organizational culture suitable to that person, somebody may not find it conducive. So eventually, one who does not find it conducive moves on to another organization, and he or she may be a right fit in that kind of role. But at the same time, somebody else would have been the right fit in the current organization. So it's about how we adapt ourselves to that organization and what fits our need of evolution, of our need, our perception of the way we need to progress further in our career. So yes, cultures are developing, cultures are trying to be in sync with what is currently happening. But yes, it wouldn't take all of a sudden, it will take some time for everybody to come to the same kind of maturity level and deliver things accordingly. But yes, when it comes to technology, ML and AI is something which is very much thriving in the market right now, and we are expecting more of traction in that. These days, I would say there is much hiring also being done on different languages, on different backend technologies, on different front-end technologies. So need is always there. The need will always be there. People are wanting new products. People are wanting new softwares, specifically on Internet of Things as well. IoT is very much thriving, and there always will be need. So it's high time that we need to know what is there in the market right now, make our students, make the technical people enabled to adapt to that particular culture and survive and grow up the ladder.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think that's what it's all about. Like it's not about like companies can't become a unicorn in a day, like because if you are a unicorn in a day, probably you're faking some things, or else you're not making some things work, and you are just faking the entire infrastructure that you have built for a time. And let's just come to the certification, because now you talked about how some things really worked out for you well, and now you did some certification. But now ITIL has already evolved. Like when you see an ITIL evolution, like it's like the certification has itself like been like there has been a versions for it. Like it's not like okay, it's been standard for this, it's been standard for that. Like many people have worked a lot. But like how is it all about when we are talking about something as good as an ITIL evolving plus the certifications that we are talking about? Of course, forget the fact that there are certifications, but what's your insights about the versions of the ITIL that is coming up? Because ITIL is huge. ITIL was actually 5 books. When you have, if you read the initial books, it's 5 books. But if you read Visible Ops, it's only 3 books. So do read that, please. I just love to suggest everybody to read that. So what is it all about when we are talking about ITIL? ITIL has been a culture today. ITIL has been everything from very long time. So what is it all about when we talk about ITIL?
Yeah, see, ITIL has always been a culture, I would say. It was never missing from the landscape. And yes, like technology, ITIL, any kind of framework, it also keeps evolving in sync with what is the need of the market right now, as I said. So yes, ITIL has evolved, but at the end of the day, I mean, they can be, you can say that terminologies may differ, or there can be something new coming up in every kind of course, in every kind of curriculum, or even the framework that is evolving every time. But at the end of the day, process adherence remains the same. ITIL is all about meeting service delivery timelines and meeting, meeting the process in time and servicing the needs in right time. That is all what matters. So ITIL was the crux of the soul of the ITIL was still the same, and it's still the same now. But there can be more technologies, sorry, there can be more terminologies coming up, and we need to be abreast of what a particular framework is giving us. We need not mug entire thing. I mean, obviously, if we need to pass an exam, we need to pass some certification. Then that time we need to study books, we need to study the course pattern, we need to study the course material. But at the end of the day, if you understand the soul of that framework, then it is not about these terminologies only. Then you'll be able to relate what the framework is giving to you, even if it has evolved. What the framework is giving to you, you would be relating practical questions to what you have studied, what you have learned, and what you have been exposed to, and you would be getting a solution to that automatically. So even if the frameworks have evolved, but the crux is still the same. The crux is again meeting the industry timelines. It's all about service transition in a timely way, in a proper way. So yes, we need to be abreast of the evolved frameworks that we are working in. Every day we are studying in, and the application of that in what we are doing in the right way. It's not about mugging things. It's not about theoretical knowledge. We have read a lot of books, but how to adapt that in practice is what matters. And that's what a corporate journey is all about, everybody of ours.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for such great insights. And I think it's going to help a lot of people who are willing to get inside the IT. I think probably some non-tech folks. If you're listening, please do follow her. And I think she has an amazing blog called as Anecdote. I'll put the link in the description, and it will be there in the as an overlay on this video as well. So please do follow it and motivate her to write something more on the Anecdote. Of course, there's very less content there, but amazing things are being said there. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for such great insights.
Thank you so much, Vishwas. Have a good day ahead.